on this episode of Finding Beautiful Strangers. We're in this deal and we're about to take off. We spent so much money, all of our investment. It was like the Oprah moment. It was going to all happen and it was going to be huge. And then everything tumbled.
Holding my breath and I'm ready to go. I'm falling right in and I'm ready to go. I found what I want and I know that we're on top. So I'll tap in and I'm ready to whoa.
Finding Beautiful Strangers is my adventure as a serial entrepreneur and how the people I meet along the way make it possible. It's not a job, it's a lifestyle. I'm Abby Wallach, and it's my story.
Ready to whoa.
My friend and beautiful stranger partner Melissa and I are at our favorite restaurant, and I tell her we are going to create the first content commerce play on the internet. And I ask, "Are you in?" And she looked me straight in the eye and she said, "I'll give you 2 years. Let's do it." That is exactly what we did. We grabbed this fantastic camera guy, Larry. He did everything we had asked. He shot great B-roll. We went behind the scenes at Vivian Tam with our camera, and we literally whipped into gear, knew exactly what to do from the minute we stepped into that room, and hunted down and style stalked the coolest, most fabulous people in the fashion business, from Ruchka Bergman to Murillo to this adorable, beautiful Erin, who is like the assistant who didn't even know what Beacon's Closet was at the time, to all of the amazing cast and characters that were getting ready to hit the runway at Vivian's show, and even Vivian and Vincent Longo. And what happened in that moment was really magical. It was the magic of having a vision, having a dream, actualizing that dream, bringing it to life, sharing it with an industry that we both love. I wanted to be in beauty, but now we're in fashion, but we're asking the beauty questions. You know, what is the makeup artist putting on the model? What are they using to magnify their eyes? What's the shadow? Is it smoky? Is it sexy? Is it hot red lip at the moment? You know, how are you matching the clothing to the beauty look? I felt like we arrived. I mean, Melissa had done that for so many years at In Style, but I was finally getting to be in action, and there's nothing I love more than action. So here I was with Melissa and our camera crew, interviewing people, finding out what they used, loved, and wore, and then actually taking it back into our little studio to have it edited, to then turn it into a shoppable piece of content. Now, remember, there's no shoppable content anywhere. There's no video that you can shop off of except for Home Shopping Network. There's no technology that exists. We had to make it up. And it was a very exciting time. We had investors at the table, my very dear friend Ron, who was really just a true inspiration, a brilliant financier, and someone who always believed in the entrepreneurial spirit. He wrote us our first check and helped us raise our first round of financing, and we were off to the races. And we were literally on the street producing Beautiful Stranger every single day for the next 3 to 4 years, and then packaging that content in little short form bits where we would then serve it up on the internet on our beautifulstranger.tv. That was our URL. Actually, we created the .tv. We were the first, because the idea behind that was it was TV on the internet, right? It makes sense. Think about it. Beautifulstranger.tv. Like, never heard of that. So that was how that originated. And then we hired a brilliant technology company to create a video screen where on the side of the content, this little link would pop up and then you could click through. Now, at this time in the world, there was no affiliate link. Retailers didn't even produce any content. Like, none of this existed. So we literally made it up. There was a very powerful moment during this journey where the head of NBC was looking for me. And that to me was like, oh my God, maybe I finally arrived somewhere. I was so excited. They were recognizing what we were on to and what we were creating, and that there was something magical here and important. It wasn't just the beauty of the content. It was that we were providing an audience a piece of entertainment, a piece of service, and a final result is the click to purchase. I mean, that was the holy grail, right? It was similar to Melissa's brilliant editorial where it was 135 best beauty buys, where she would curate the best of the best. And it was in a magazine. And in the early days, I used to rip out that magazine and go shopping for those products. So the philosophy and the mentality behind Beautiful Stranger was to curate the coolest people, gather their information, and then hyperlink to every single product and service that they mentioned. So there were a lot of really interesting things that happened along that journey. And when we finally launched our first 12 mini episodes, I had a newsletter, and that newsletter was from the previous business. And there were many well-known beauty industry and fashion industry and media industry executives on this list, because one thing about me, I am always building, right? When you're an entrepreneur, you save everything, you know everything, you learn everything, and you just file it away for the next business. That's how it kind of works. Well, that's how it works for me. So my first phone call, literally the minute that this thing launched on the internet and the newsletter went out, I'm sitting in the studio. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear what people think. And I pick up my phone. That was when we picked up phones. People made phone calls. I don't even think we had text. I think I had a BlackBerry. And I get a phone call from this guy, and his name is Mike Gould. And Mike Gould is the CEO of Bloomingdale's. And I almost fall off my chair. And he's like, "Hey, Abby, it's Mike Gould. I just got your newsletter. That is so awesome. I'm so proud of you. Just wanted to let you know." This is a man that I only met a few times that was a brilliant merchant, but was so kind to me, and he believed in me. And the fact that he actually picked up the phone, I will never, ever, ever forget that, because it really meant the world to me. And I wasn't even in the retail business, but I was just trying to converge media and entertainment and shopping and all that kind of cool stuff. So the good news was, in that moment, somebody recognized what we were doing, and that someone was very important. On our journey of Beautiful Stranger, many stories and things happened, and it really was about the people and the relationships that we met along the way. When we would go onto the street, we would sit on the corner of Barney's, and we would just interview like the most stylish people. Most of the time they weren't American. They were usually from somewhere else, fabulous. And they would share with us what they were loving and what they were buying and where they were eating. And we almost became like a Zaggett's guide to share the super cool things that were happening on the street, but we would actually share a link so you could procure that. We would hang out in the coolest places, like where nobody was. You know, we knew where the stylish people were. So some of those spots were like Madison Avenue and Barney's. We were always on that corner. But other places that were starting to build up was the Meat District. We would hang out at Balthazar all this time in the West Village. We would head out to the Rockaways. We went out to Montauk before anybody was talking about Montauk. We were at the Surf Lodge the day the Surf Lodge launched, and no one ever heard of it. We were in there with that camera crew, uncovering cool people, sharing consumer behavior, and really embracing the beauty and the magic of people sharing their stories. And what would also happen on the street is we would interview someone in Montauk and then would meet their sister like in Brooklyn. And that was another thing. You know, we would hightail it out to Brooklyn, which was like a whole other world. But we would go there and we would go to Williamsburg and we would find interesting people. And not only would we interview people that had great style, it didn't matter how old they were. It didn't matter what their ethnicity was. It didn't matter what their age was. Like, I remember this Marion. I remember Melissa saying, "Oh my God, she is in Missoni and her glasses match her dress." And she was just freaking so cool. You know, it's like the Iris Apfels. People that just have an innate sensibility, phenomenal style, really know how to put it together. Would find these young kids who they knew how to work it. They had an attitude. They had a way of being in the world. They had something that you just wanted to know more about. And the fun thing was, me and Melissa, we would just sprint. We didn't care where we were. We would I would have her stop and jump out of her car because I spotted someone in a sea of people that looked so fabulous. We pulled people into her car. We saw a guy with a top hat. We literally made him strip down to his underwear. I know, seriously. and tell us what he was wearing. And then we found this surfer dude on the street in a suit, and literally the next thing we know, he's running down the street with a surfboard, and he's taking off his clothes to tell us, where he bought his suit. And it really was these moments that were so unique and playful that created an opportunity to produce this amazing content and then ultimately offer it up to our audience and get them excited. And as we started Beautiful Stranger, our audience started growing. We were in the distribution business. There were millions of people following Beautiful Stranger. And they weren't necessarily following them on our website. They were following them on other distribution platforms. Like they were following them on AOL because we were partners with them and on the front page. And then we did a huge deal with Disney. You know Disney, the maker of dreams come true. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And could you believe that we were actually YouTube's one of their very first partners in fashion and beauty? We put Frederick Fekkai on YouTube before anyone even knew what YouTube was.
Stronger than what you would believe. Way more than what's plain to see. You either got it or you don't.
The lessons that I learned through this business venture was that there's no carved path. When you're a producer and a creator and an innovator, you kind of just got to roll with it. You got to do the dance. You got to pivot when you have to. You go out to fundraise. Everyone's going to say no. That's how it works. You keep going. No means nothing. And you just take the bull by the horn and you make it happen. And that's kind of what happened when we got into business with Disney. And this was the coup of a century, right? A moment that as a producer, I waited for my entire life. Not only was NBC hunting me down and taking my pitches, but everybody else in the business was as well because they were fascinated with who we were, what we were doing, the merger of magazine content and TV programming, getting people to shop. And then, we had this really big deal that came to the table that we were super excited about. We were going to be on the front of SoapNet. SoapNet was Disney's biggest platform where all of the soap stars and the soap operas would live. And Beautiful Stranger, I can't even believe I'm going back to this time, was on the front of that website. And we were their anchor. And this was a moment we geared our entire business up for this moment. We put so much money behind our bandwidth meaning our back end for our website so we could receive all of the traffic that Disney was going to send us. We spent so much money, all of our investment. It was like the Oprah moment. It was going to all happen and it was going to be huge. And then everything tumbled.
When I get through to this.
Gear up, we're ready to take it on the road, and we get a call in the middle of the night from the head guy. We have to pull the plug. And this is after negotiations, contracts are signed, we've spent millions, we're ready, the content's ready, and we just are ready to blast off. And I'm like, what do you mean? You just asked me to do X, Y, and Z in our contract and go the distance, and I'm spending all this money and I'm doing what I need to do to make this successful for Disney and for you. And, I know people. I think that's what I said. I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, I'm so sorry, but the network has decided they're not going to go through with the multi-million-dollar campaign. And as much as we want to do it, it's not a priority. And I was devastated. I was so devastated that I just didn't even know what to do. I don't even remember what I did. I just know that it was one of the biggest lows of my career. Imagine you're climbing the mountain, like Kermit always would tell me, just keep climbing, never look back. You're climbing, you're always climbing. And then you're about to tip, you're right? You're finally at the top. You're at the top. You're on YouTube, AOL, Huffington Post. And we were on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Best day ever. Christina Binkley came out on the street with us, did a full-page feature. That is a lifelong dream. Who gets that? I was so elated, and we're in this deal, and we're about to take off, and then it gets pulled. So it's quite devastating and very, very disheartening in this moment, and we're really, really feeling down and out. And I look at my team, and I look at Melissa, And I'm at a loss of words because we spent so much money. And it wasn't that we couldn't pick ourselves up again and keep going, because of course we did. But as an entrepreneur, when you are a small company and these very big companies come and knock on your door and they want you, that's what you work towards. But many times those deals don't work out and they can crush you. And this deal crushed us. But we were able to miraculously pick ourselves up by our bootstraps, keep going, keep producing, and continued to pursue Beautiful Stranger and pivot a little bit so it wasn't as much about the video production. It became more about our newsletter. It became more about other types of media. And then it got to a point where it was so crushing that we had to move forward and move on. But I couldn't do that. So my team had to move on and Melissa had to move on. But I couldn't move on because it was so much a part of who I was and my heart and my soul and all those people that I had met along the way, and finally being in the beauty industry and the fashion industry, but not on anyone's terms. It was my own terms, but on the media side of the business and the relationships that I had. It was really devastating and daunting, but I was not going to let anything get in my way. So as a true entrepreneur and the spirit of a diehard, tenacious person that I am, and skills that I've learned through the ups and the downs and the trials and tribulations, in the end, I was able to turn the concept of Beautiful Stranger into a reality show and sold it to a network. Because I had the opportunity to interview such incredible beauty industry and fashion industry heavyweights, Frederic Fekkai, Olivia Chantecaille, Sharon Durham, Mark Garrison, Bobbi Brown, Nikki Kennard, and the many other brilliant celebrity experts that were put in front of us to uncover their stories. It was a skill that I learned. I love to learn about other people's stories. And, through the many years on the street and working with Melissa, it gave me an opportunity and taught me how to get information and report on different areas of the industry. So fast forward years later, I was offered a wonderful opportunity, first to be a guest on a podcast called Beauty is Your Business, but then actually to be the co-host of this podcast. And what that did for me in the later years was allow me to not only leverage my many relationships throughout the business, but it also allowed me to share other people's stories and dig deeper into their journeys and the businesses they were in. And because of my expertise and the knowledge that I've gained in fragrance and beauty on the other side of the table, I think that I was able to ask very deep and meaningful questions about an industry where audiences could learn from and take away information that they could use for themselves. And this was just like I had over the years because I learned so much from being on the street. I actually say I got my MBA on the street. How do you like that? Coming up in the next episode, what propelled me to emerge from behind the scenes and into the spotlight. Don't be a stranger. Find me at abby.wallach on Instagram. And if you want to learn more about my projects and the things that I've done, check it out, abbywallach.com. This podcast is produced and edited by Mark Rako. Copyright 2022, Abby Wallach Productions.